Hey guys, Jordan here with another Finer Things review, and today we're going to talk about a game that was kickstarted earlier this year in the spring and has finally arrived a few weeks ago. And if you couldn't guess by now, I am one of those Kickstarter backers. So I would like to show you Lagoon, Land of Druids. A game for 2 to 4 players by 3 Hairs Games. This is his first game, the first time design. Interesting game, you know, it's kind of like board manipulation and actually figuring out, making the board be in the configuration that you need it to be is what this game is all about. So kind of interesting, and but more about that in a little bit. Let me show you the components and how we play, and then I'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, here we have a game of Lagoon set up for 3 players. For setup, you're going to choose the tiles that you're going to use in the game. In certain setups, you're not going to use all of the tiles. In other ones, you will use all of them. So after you decide which setup to go with, you set up 3 start tiles. A few requirements here. There must be one of each of the 3 colors in the game. So there must be a yellow, red, and blue. And one of these must be a haven site. More about that later. Each player is then going to take their Explore token and their Eldred and Acolyte Druids, placing their Eldred and 2 of their Acolytes on the starting Haven tile. And you will take the rest of the tiles in the game that you're going to use and shuffle them up and place them in the bag. Also, you're going to lay out seed tokens of the 3 different colors, and each player is going to take one of these player reference markers here. Just give them an overview of their actions and the sequence of events for their turn. Now, I do want to note, this is the Kickstarter edition of the game. So you will see in this video the seed tokens and the druid tokens are wood. If you purchase this game just retail, now you're going to get a bag here of cardboard tokens and chits, but I will say these are very nice, and they are extremely thick tokens for this game. So even the retail version is still very nice. So in Lagoon, you are trying to influence the 3 different energies in the game, represented by the 3 different colors of red, blue, and yellow. When the game ends, the game will end when the last tile from the bag is drawn. And then we will look at the board as it stands. And the color that is dominant, i.e. the color that has the most tiles remaining on the board, was going to be considered the dominant energy. And then depending on that, you will score appropriately. And we will get more on that later. But just know that your real intent in this game is to influence the board and have it come out so that the color you want to be dominant is, so that you can score the most points. And then after that is just the most points wins the game. So after randomly determining a first player, you are going to take actions, as many as you wish, up to however many druids that you have that are available to take actions. And when you are either out of available druids that can take actions, or you are done, your turn will end, and then it goes clockwise, and the game will just keep going until that last tile is drawn. So we'll look here on this player mat again, and just kind of go down here and it will show us the turn order. So first we have a begin step. The begin step is just for effects that are named on the tiles that say at the beginning of your turn, do this, or you maybe do this, or anything like that. So you will look for any tiles in which you have druids on, and if you have an ability to activate at the begin step, you may do so at this time. Then each player is going to refresh some of their druids. So as we go along through the course of the game, let's split them out here. You'll notice these druids have two sides. They have a painted in, filled in side, and then a outlined side like that. So when it is full like this, the druid is considered fresh and available to take actions. And when it is on the outlined side like that, it is considered exhausted. So after your begin step, you may refresh up to 3 of your druids on the board. By simply just flipping them back over to the refreshed state. Then after that, you may take actions. This is where the meat of the game really lies. So each druid that you have has 4 innate actions that it can do. One is movement. It's very simple, moving from one tile to an adjacent tile. You simply move the druid over and exhaust it. Summon. An active druid or a refreshed druid may exhaust itself to bring out another druid from your supply and put it onto any haven site. Haven sites are noted in the game. They come in all 3 different colors. But you'll notice here on the bottom of the tile, they have a green background, and all of them have the similar text that says, a soul haven in play cannot be unraveled. So you may, I said again, you may exhaust your druid to bring another one into play. You can bring it into play into any available haven, and they come into play exhausted on the board. Then you may explore. To explore a site, you will choose a druid on a tile, whichever druid you would like to explore, and they will exhaust. You will randomly draw a tile from the bag and look at it. And now all these tiles are unique. They will have 2 different colors, one on each side. And you will choose which side you want, and then you will place it on any adjacent side as long as it shares one side with the tile that the druid who is exploring is on. You will also flip your explore marker over to show that you have explored for this turn. You only can do this action 1 time during your turn. And whichever color you choose, you will take a seed token of that color and put it into your supply. And with this action, you may also then choose to move onto that tile if you wish. But if you do not, you may stay on the tile that you were from. Now, I will explain a little bit more about this later. There is another way to explore via using tile abilities. But note that when you explore using your basic explore action, this is the only time when you can move your druid for free onto the newly explored tile. The last action that druids have innate to them is the unravel action. Now, unraveling is the way that you may manipulate the board to have the color that you want become dominant in the game. So let's say here that I want to unravel this blue site. Now we'll look here at this little player reference again. And we'll look down here at the bottom, and this will show you need energy to remove this site. So if I am on a blue site, I will look here, site to unravel is blue. I need 3 red energy. So what that means is, let me put a few more tiles out here to show. my druid is here and wants to unravel this blue site, I need 3 red energy. Well, what does that mean? That means I can gain energy in one of 2 ways. For every druid that I have, exhausted or refreshed, it does not matter, that is on a red site, that is going to give me 1 red energy. So in this case, I already have 2 red energy right here. And then also I can spend seed tokens that I gain from exploring and placing tiles. I can spend those to make up for the difference that I am lacking. So in this case, if I want to unravel this site, I need 3 red energy. I have 1 here, I have 1 here. If I had a red token, I could spend that, and I now have 3 red energy that I need. Then I may unravel this site. To do so, I will exhaust my druid, removing him and taking him and putting him back into my supply. He's removed from the game at that point. Any other druids that were also on this tile will be exhausted, and you may place them on any of the havens available on the board currently. And then you will take that tile, keeping its facing, its color there, and putting that into your supply for scoring at the end of the game. So those are the 4 basic actions that all the druids can do. So the other actions that are available to your druids are site actions. Like I said, on these sites here, these tiles, which are sites, they have opposing colors on each side of them. And then you'll notice down here they all have some text, which are the actions available when your druid is on that site. So in this case here, it says discard 1 seed, move any unlocked site of that seed's energy to any space. On the other side, summon 1 druid exhausted to any site I occupy. So first let's talk, you'll see some iconography on these tiles, which is referenced here in your player map. You will see this symbol here, which is the invoke action. It has the little picture of the tile with a arrow to it. This simply means that the druid who is taking that action is going to have to exhaust itself from refreshed to exhausted to do that action. You will also notice an invoke action, but this time the picture of the druid piece has a little star next to it. This means that your Eldred druid must do the action. So you have, each player will have 1 Eldred druid, which is denoted by this little starburst here, and the piece itself is slightly bigger than your other druids, which are referred to as acolytes in the game. So, if it is a basic invoke action, then any of your druids may do the action. If it has the starburst on the picture, like that, then that means that only your Eldred is available to do that action. Also, you will see there are 2 green symbols here, one with a little lightning bolt on it, which is an exploration action, which means you have that action available to you as soon as you explore that tile for the first time. And then there is another icon of a little hourglass, and that is going to denote either at the begin, end, or during your turn the action that is available and when it's available. Now these tiles, do all sorts of random different actions, but each color, each energy has its own type that they tend to do. So the red tiles tend to move your druids faster across the board so that you can quickly get to other sites and tiles that you want to access. The blue tiles tend to shift the board around, either swapping positions of tiles or moving them around the board. And the yellow tiles tend to deal with resources in that they allow you to refresh druids or use less energy when unraveling or doing other actions. But to do a site action, you simply have to have a fresh druid, and you exhaust it if needs be, and do the text as it says on the tile. Now, one interesting thing about this game is that to do the side action, you don't actually have to have the Eldred on the tile of the action that you want to do. Let me explain. So in this case here, I have one refreshed druid, Saber the Owls. Now these druids are psychically linked to each other, meaning that this druid right here can do the site action of any other site that I have a druid on, whether it is refreshed or exhausted or not. So this druid here could do the action of the tile he is on, or he could do the action of the other two tiles that I have my other two druids on. And to do it, you would simply invoke or exhaust whatever I need to do for whatever tile I want to access, and then do what it says. Now, a few things about these. Some of these will refer to locked sites. A site is considered locked if, when you remove it from the board, it would split the board into two pieces, i.e. it would be non-contiguous. So let's say this site were over here. That means that this site here, this blue site, is now locked, because if I remove it from the board, then suddenly the board is no longer one piece, it is no longer contiguous. So this site is considered locked for any of the actions that reference locked sites. So the gameplay will continue pretty much like this. Each player taking their begin actions, refreshing 3 of their druids, taking actions by moving, exploring new sites, unraveling other sites off of the board, or summoning new druids into play. We'll go around and around, each player taking their turn, until the last of the tiles in this bag. And typically in the starting game there are 24 tiles. The max would be 27 for a longer game. Once that last tile is drawn, that player will finish their turn, and then we will look at the board to determine the dominant energy and do final scoring. Okay, so here we have a possible end game board that we're looking at here. Typically you won't have a lot of tiles left out after a bunch of unraveling has happened. But let's say the last tile has been drawn, the last player has taken their turn, and now we're going to determine what energy is dominant so that we know how to appropriately score. So we would look at all the tiles that are still out on the board and simply count how many we have of each. So we have 2 blue, we have 3 yellows, and we have 4 red tiles. So in this case, red is considered the dominant energy. Now, in case it comes up, just in case, let's say this red was not here for a moment. In this case now we have 3 red and 3 yellow. They are tied. In that case, you'll look back to your player aid, and you'll see this little swirl up here at the top. And what this means, this is, shows the relationship of the energies to each other. And what this little swirling here means is that it's kind of a rock, paper, scissors effect. And that blue will beat yellow, yellow will beat red, and red would beat blue in the case of a tie. So we have red and yellow both at 3, both ties. So in this case, yellow would defeat red. So in that case, yellow would be the dominant energy. But if not, we just have this, simply counting them up. Red has the most tiles, so red is the dominant energy. Then we will go to final scoring for the game, which is also down here on your player aid. So if red is the dominant energy, which is called destiny, the destiny of the world, look at red. So you will score 1 point for every seed that matches the dominant energy, in this case red. So every red seed that I would have still in my supply, I would score 1 point for it. And then I will score 2 points for every tile that you have gained from unraveling for each non-red or non-dominant color that you've unraveled through the course of the game, scoring 2 points for each of those. So whatever the dominant color is, you'll get a point for every seed of that color. So you want your seeds to match the dominant color. And then you'll score 2 points for every tile that does not match the other 2 competing energies. You'll score 2 points per tile that you've unraveled of those. Simply add up your points, and the player with the most points wins. Okay, also, I would just like to mention the artwork in this game is gorgeous. Each of these tiles has its own unique art on it, and also the back of the player aids also each has its own unique art. I think this went to just above and beyond here what was needed for the game in terms of the artwork and components. Great components, really thick stock even in the retail version, and the artwork, like I said, is just amazing. Okay. So that is Lagoon, Land of Druids. Like I said, I was a Kickstarter backer, so the components, like I said in there, they have the nice wood pieces for the Druids and for the seed tokens and everything. As the retail version, you will not get those, but you still will get a bag full of the corresponding chits. And the chits are nice. I mean, they are really thick. There's the same stock as the tiles, which are really thick. I can't really think of another game that I have that has chits that are quite that chunky and thick. So they're still very nice. This game is a really interesting game. Let's talk about because of the end, because of the scoring. So this game is really about manipulating the board. And doing that, and to be able to do that, you're going to have to kind of maybe try to manipulate the other players and maybe make some moves that are unexpected. You don't want to forecast everything. Maybe you don't want to forecast what color you're going for at the beginning, because ultimately at one point you're going to have to choose what energy, what color you want to dominate on the board so that you can score all your tiles and your seeds and stuff like that. So it's interesting that you kind of have to have this running gameplay in your mind, and you're gonna have to adapt, and it's gonna be, you have like an overall strategy maybe of like, okay, I'm gonna go for yellow and do this, but it might have to change, when you have other players, maybe they're competing with you the same color, or they're just trying to unravel all of your sides, you're trying to unravel all of theirs. And it's really interesting in that, like, there can be like sudden switches right at the end, where it looks like red's going to win, and this guy's just been going for red the whole time, and we've been doing this, and then, what color, what energy is going to be dominant, which one has the most tiles out there, can just turn on a dime. 1-2 turns, and suddenly red is, out of contention, and now it looks like yellow is about to be the dominant energy. So it's very interesting trying to manipulate that board so that it looks the way you want it to when, to do the final scoring. Because you can explore well, you can be unraveling sites, left and right, and doing all this cool stuff, and, playing well. But if your color, if the dominant energy, the dominant color isn't the color you need it to be, you might just be out. All that hard work may be for nothing. So, been really enjoying it. 2 players, oftentimes with 2 players, are really, the type of game that's going to come out of it is really going to depend on the players themselves. Because I've played where, right out of the gate, both players just start going for the same color. And I think in that way, I will say it can almost be a little bit limited, in that we're obviously both going for the same color, and so it becomes a race. And pretty much just that. Now, maybe a little more clever player or something like that, you know, you'll be going and then they'll try to flip it over and suddenly you think they're going for red or blue or something, and then all of a sudden they just start going for yellow and exploring yellow and start unraveling all those other sites. So it can be really interesting. I think it's, with 2 players, the type of game and experience you're going to get out of it is going to be more dependent, maybe a little more so than other games, on the player themselves and kind of how crafty they are and you know, not forecasting their moves and their intent. Now, I think this game with 3 players, I think this game is best at 3 players. I think this game really shines at 3. It would be my preferred number of players to play with, because with 3, you got 3 players out there. You've got the 3 different colors. Oftentimes, 2 players will still be hunting after the same color, and they'll be kind of getting into this race situation, which can free you up to start, you know, thinking about how to manipulate that board right at the end, or, you know, mid-game or something like that to switch them up, and then, you know, like suddenly they don't know what they're going to do. So I think 3 is really where this game really shines. Now, it also plays with 4, but with 4 you're going to play a team game where you're going to have two teams of 2 players. You know, you can, I don't think there's an official rule about, you know, table talk and stuff like that. We always play that you can table talk, you know, and if you need, you can go have little mini conferences over on the side, or whispering on the side of the table, or just talking out loud over the table and just trying to work with the other player to achieve that end, to be like, okay, let's make blue dominant. You know, how are we going to do that? What tiles are we going to get? Are we going to try to only collect 1 color of tile? You know, so that if the board does switch, I'll be able to still score those tiles. It's an interesting experience with 4, and certainly if you get a teammate that's on the same page with you and your play styles work well together, then it can be really cool in that, you know, you can really play a lot of those tiles. You know, you can really access a lot of those tile actions in the game. But for me, I'd rather, you know, I really just want the 1. And then it's still, so with 4, it's still just a 2-sided kind of adventure. And again, sometimes even that can then descend into, okay, we both decide, you know, we both know we want this color to be the dominant color, and now we're just racing. And instead of 2 players playing it, we're playing 4. But still, very enjoyable and an interesting experience trying to work with someone else to manipulate this big board. One thing I said earlier about, you know, collecting tiles. Now, I've seen players where they'll only unravel sites of a particular color. That way, if the board does switch over to one of the other colors, like I had one guy who was only unraveling blue tiles, and he was trying to make yellow the dominant energy. And then another player was trying to make red go. No, not too successfully, but then right at the end of the game, the last round, you know, it's so easy and so quick that the board can switch, you know, and suddenly it became where red was tied, and it looked like maybe red was going to be the dominant energy on the very last turn with that last tile drawn. But since he had only collected blue tiles, he was going to score them either way. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. You know, the colors that you choose, he decided to go down one path. That way he could score those tiles with either other color. So that was cool. Of course, the seed tokens, you're only going to get the 1 point. But I think mostly the main scoring, obviously, you're going to get 2 points for those tiles. So it's for those tiles. So it's an interesting thing to think about. You know, am I going to differentiate, get a couple of these and a couple of reds, a couple of yellows, or, you know, depending on what color you're trying to dominate the board with? Or do you just go on 1 so that if it does flip on a dime on you, as long as it's not the color of the tile, you know, that you've been collecting, you can still score. So that's an interesting thing to think about. There are rules for a solo game as well, and it's just on the back of the rule book here, and then there's a little insert here. Basically, you're playing a 2-player game with a dummy player, and everything is kind of mapped out here as far as, you know, how they're going to explore, what actions they're going to choose, and stuff like that. And it's okay, and you get a cute little bag for their tokens and the other little druids they're going to bring out in the game. I do like playing games solo, although I am not as much a fan of, you know, just playing a game solo where it just adds, where the solo variant is you play a 2-player game with a dummy player, which is essentially what this is. Kind of interesting. It takes a little bit because, you know, I mean, it's like 3 pages of little rules. It's not a lot of rules, but it's, you know, certainly you're going to go back and be referencing like, okay, he did this last turn, so now he can do this action or this action. You know, it was interesting to pass the time. I certainly think that maybe it could have been a little more interesting if they're, you know, maybe they're just a different goal or maybe some other way to go about it, you know, or some kind of thing where you already had to have a color that you're trying to dominate and some rules to deal with, you know, other, you know, the game, you know, tries to bring out tiles of the, you know, opposing colors out. So anyway, that is Lagoon, Land of the Druids. I really enjoy this game, and I'm glad that I kickstarted it, and my play group has been enjoying it as well. I think it plays best at 3 players. Can take about an hour, maybe a little bit longer. Depends on, you know, how prone your group is to analysis paralysis, because there is a lot of text and stuff on those tiles to take in. But of course, they're constantly coming out, and other ones are constantly leaving. So you just kind of have to make a quick reference at the end. But yeah, Lagoon, Land of the Druids, and I hope this video helps you decide if this is the game for you or not.